This place wants us dead.
What could have done that?
There must be a bear.
A bear did that.
I found only one set of prints. Large, 20 inches across.
I do not believe it is an animal we battle.
Not a man, not a bear. Then what?
It's the ice, Georgie. It's only the ice.
Welcome to Ice Cold, the Double P Podcast Network's look at AMC's The Terror, based on the novel by
Dan Simmons.
My name is Bubba. You can find me on Twitter at FitandTrim. That's FITTENTRIM, at FitandTrim on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and YouTube. And with me, as always, is someone who is never fit for command, the worst kind of second. It's Catfish. Catfish, how are you doing?
Well, I was cold before I watched this episode, but now I've been warmed up by all the ice cold tongue lashings people have been getting tonight. You know, last week, first of all, you can reach me at CJGman67 on Twitter and Twitter only. I'm exclusive. But Twitter pays me just to be on Twitter.
Oh, that's nice.
Now, last week, we, and by we I mean you, came with this idea that because this podcast is so ice cold that we'd come up with an ice cold line of the week. And you know what? It's almost as if the writers heard that and said, Bubba, Catfish, we are going to give you 7 or 8 ice cold lines, and we're going to give you a couple of ice cold activities to choose from. Let me tell you, this was a better than an episode of Beverly Hills Housewives. People were smacking each other down left and right in this, and that kind of made up for the fact that, well, there wasn't a lot going on until there was
too much going on. We are talking about Season 1, Episode 3, The Ladder, which is described thusly: with something now stalking the ships, the captains debate their options, testing their loyalty to one another against their duty to their crews. Catfish, let's get to it right up top. What is your ranking out of 10 for Episode 3, The Ladder?
Wow. I am going to give it 9, what I like to call double J's.
9 double J's?
Yeah, jumping Johns. Well, he may not be doing much jumping anymore, but that's how I like to remember him, as jumping with his 2 legs.
With both of his legs.
Yes. And what about you, Bubba? What did you give this?
Well, let me say,
The Ladder.
When we reviewed the first 2 episodes last week on the podcast, I was only 7 out of 10. Both of us, we've read the books, but we're not going to have any spoilers for this podcast.
Right. Except there was one spoiler you just gave, that there's more than one book, which I didn't even know.
Okay, that was a slip of the tongue. But for this episode, I am going up to 8 double H's out of 10.
Double H's?
Well, double H's, especially on The Terror, is when you describe horrific holes. There are a lot of horrific holes, including what Hickey's horrific hole did to that Mr. Gibson's bed at the end of the episode. But holy smokes.
Wow.
When it wants to flip the script, and when it wants to flip the switch and go into terror mode on The Terror, it's ready. At any moment, we're just going to flip that switch and go into terror. I thought it was great. What I like to call double D.
Double D.
Domestic drama about, okay, who's going to do this? Who's in command? You got to listen to me.
But let me do this. No, you can't do that. I'm going to do it my own self. There's a lot going on. And then, of course, at the end, it sets up, holy cow. We know there's been a lot of brouhaha between our drinker, Crozier.
Oh, yes.
And FJF.
That's JFJ, James Fitzjames there, Capt.
And so I thought, and this may come up in the future, I thought that JFJ might not give in to the lead of Crozier, even though there's a very specific,
chain of command.
Chain of command. Exactly. So that is going to bubble up for sure in the future. No doubt about it. There's going to be a lot of hassles there.
But I went up from 7 to 8. You went up from 8 to 9.
Well, I'll say this. While we both did read the book singular, and then you read another book that was in the series that no one else knows about, that I was surprised when Sir John died.
Oh, man.
And that really shakes things up, because even though things seemed dire, there was a guy who had his hand on the wheel. Now, he seemed to be very obstinate and things weren't going to go well, but at least there was sort of an order here and he could run things. Now, obviously, Crozier's got his own intentions. JFJ is probably going to undermine those. We're set up for a lot, not to mention the fact that we got some evil beast taking fools' legs off. You know...
Excuse me, evil beast, I'm on...
Team Tuunbaq.
Double T, Team Tuunbaq.
Well...
oh, my Lord. Tuunbaq is one bad mother.
Shut your mouth. I'm just talking about Tuunbaq.
Right. He shut some people some mouths real good, Tuunbaq did.
You know, what I love is the hubris of these guys. You know what? We are going... There's an evil beast out here that's really nasty. But let's stand around for this picture that's going to take a minute to develop. Just hanging out. So good. So good. I mean, to me, there was only one real mistake that was made in this episode.
Ooh.
And that is, you know, I'm a believer that if you are going to hunt something and kill it, that you need to use all parts of it. So why didn't they take the Eskimo's coat? They could have used that. When you kill an Eskimo, you need to use all parts of the Eskimo. Otherwise, that's just wasteful hunting. It's not respectable hunting.
Okay, that was not respectable comments. What we love, and the reason why we do this podcast here on the Double B Podcast Network, is we do it, we don't have ads, we do it to talk to you, fellow fans out there, to join us on these crazy adventures we do. We encourage everybody, whether you're listening to this as a podcast, on iHeartRadio, on YouTube. We encourage you to go to our Facebook page.
Stitcher. If you're following us on a Twitch stream.
Right.
If you are, let us know. We're not aware of it.
Go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Double P Podcast. That's the word double, the single letter P, the word podcasts, plural. Leave us comments there. Like the page. We want you to join in. We want all of you double L's, loyal listeners, to be part of this. We're going to read feedback right at the top at these early podcasts because we really want to get to it. We had some great feedback. I'm going to start to some from a true double L loyal listener, Double M, Matt Murdoch.
Of course, that Musical Concepts.
Who, based on last week, the first 2 episodes, he said he enjoyed the Terror premiere, good economic character development through flashbacks, and enough suspense and beautifully chilling shots to keep me interested. Now, that was replied to by another good double L at Diego82 Reyes, who replied, "Gonna have to try to watch it again. I kept dozing off." Man, you doze off in this show, and Tuunbaq is gonna come in and totally take you out. So great comments from Twitter. We mentioned our Twitter handles, but once again, please go to our Facebook page. And Catfish, we got some great feedback on Facebook.
We did. Double M.
Matt Murdoch.
Double D'd.
Double D?
Yeah, double dipped. Oh, sorry. He commented on Facebook. He said, JFJ, it means Joffrey frowns justly, on James Fitzjames. He said, Sir John can stuff it. I'm Team Ireland.
Well, Team John got stuffed, more like it this week.
He said, he agreed with me. He said, not sure I like the whole Sir James interview with the Eskimo at the beginning. TMI as to who made it that far.
Okay. Now, we also got some feedback from our friend in Australia, Peter.
He said, I watched the documentary about the true story on TV. One thing I found amazing was the company who supplied all the canned food didn't have enough food, so they filled a lot of cans with nails. When the cans were taken to the ships, they were weighed but not checked. The problem was only discovered months into the journey. Also, a lot of cans were not sealed correctly, meaning the food was no good.
Yeah, that came up in this episode.
The first 3 men who died were killed from eating bad canned food. Just thought I would mention this if you didn't already know. It was probably in the book, I guess. Whoops, forgot to say I'm loving the podcast, even though I haven't watched the episode yet. I love it. And, you know, they say, okay, these people died. How do we find out this kind of information? Well, you know, in these days, most of the people, kept very detailed journals.
Oh, yeah.
And some of these things were found even before the ships were found at some of those, those
cairns.
The cairns, yeah.
Yeah, cairns. Right.
And so that's how we get some of the information. Now, we also got some feedback on YouTube.
Yes.
Because we're up on YouTube now.
We love YouTube feedback. YouTubers, keep giving us comments there, but please come to our Facebook page. Again, that's the word double, the single letter P, the word podcasts with an S on it, facebook.com/double-P podcast, and join in the team there. So we got a SMH9000, just gave us a nice little...
Shaking my head.
Yeah, 9,000.
He said, yes, keep these coming.
Frank Dodd said, I stumbled upon you guys due to my love of this book and show. Great stuff. Love hearing your views on it. Have any thoughts on Hickey and how he's portrayed in the show? Always very entertaining analysis. Thank you so much, Frank. We're going to have a lot about Hickey because he did some things I always like, and then he did some things like Hickey, come on, don't be petty.
Right, and Maestro4202_2 says, I really agree with your point about how the book made more sense as a movie.
That was your point last week, Catfish.
I think the reason it's a series is because series are all the rage these days. Sign of the times, I guess. I really love some of Ridley Scott's films, however, he's been a little off his game lately with the new Alien movies. Don't get me wrong, glad he's doing this show.
Write to us again. I want to know if this third episode has you more cool on a series, because I have to think we both gave this pretty high rating. So far, this series is getting us. We're getting hooked, you would say.
I would say this. I think, first of all, he's right that kind of series are all the rage, and, it's more like prestige TV.
Oh, yeah.
I will say this. I'm not sure a movie that someone would pay for a movie for this book, to pay for a movie to be filmed from this book, and if they had, they definitely wouldn't have spent as much money as they're spending on the series. So,
I agree.
So I'm glad that it is being done as a series.
We got one more comment on YouTube. This is from Constitutional Carrot. They wanted to remind us that on last week, on the 2-part season premiere, they said Goodsir didn't get the ring from David Young, who died and wanted his ring to go to his sister. Constitutional Carrot says, watch it again. David still has the ring on when Hickey goes into the grave to close the coffin lid. Hickey sees this, and it's implied he took the ring right before the scene with Goodsir realizing he forgot all about it. That seemed to be true. Great work, Constitutional Carrot. We will try to watch this close, but they're doing subtle work. They are making the audience pay attention. I love it, and I was really down with this third episode. Speaking of episodes, real quickly, before we get into our in-depth analysis of the episode, I wanted to talk about ratings, which are kind of a big thing on a bunch of the shows we're doing here on the Double P Podcast Network. The first hour had a kind of special preview after The Walking Dead here in the United States a week ago. Walking Dead, a very popular show. And so that first hour, when it aired after The Walking Dead, it got a 1.34 rating. And about 3.34 million viewers watched it. That's pretty good, and that's not watched it 3 days later, 7 days later. That's really good. Now, when it moved to its regular time slot, this is once again here in the United States. I know we have listeners from all around the world. It moved to 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. last week. The replay of the first hour was down to 1.23 million, but then the new episode, which was episode 2, aired at 10 p.m. last week. It was up to 1.39 million.
That is interesting, though, because that it shows quite a drop. That
well, The Walking Dead is so popular, yeah,
right, and so a bunch of people watched it and thought, or just left the TV on. You know what? I like to do this for our viewers who aren't in the United States.
Yeah.
They may not know that there's a term in the United States called Walking Dead and chill. And that is, people get so excited watching The Walking Dead, then they leave the TV on and do something else.
I haven't done that move. You think many, let me just say, ladies, question mark,
they love it. They love
get
it.
real
they
chill after
Dead or undead, ladies love The Walking Dead.
And one final thing before we dive into this episode. I was thinking about this. I've been thinking about this for a while, but in the show, these people are always referred to as Eskimos. And I was like, well, we're referring to it because that's what the characters refer to Eskimo on the show. And I was like, well, I want to make sure that it is not offensive nowadays. And that apparently this is...
I'm sure it is, just
I'm
like
sure it is
Indian.
I'm sure it is, too. So the research I found that said, although the name Eskimo is commonly used in Alaska, which is part of the United States, to refer to all the Inuit people of the world, the name is considered derogatory in many other places because even if you were a non-Inuit person, it'd be like Eskimo, which was said to mean you eat raw meat. And so we're going to use it just because the characters use it, but we don't intend to offend, and we understand that this could be derogatory to some people nowadays, so we apologize.
When we use the word Eskimo, we mean that they eat sushi.
Oh, brother, that won't have to be edited at all.
No, Eskimo sushi's raw fish.
I know. I'm
oh
kidding.
my God, I love some sushi myself.
This episode was titled The Ladder. Maybe I feel like I should remove another point from my ranking, because should this episode really have been called titled after the chorus of that song, "Farewell All Joys"? Because oh boy, all joys. They're leaving fast, buddy.
Well, I would think you'd want to knock it down, because even though every time we saw the ladder, people were not using it. Like there was a perfectly fine ladder there, but instead they just shoved people down into the hole.
So I believe everybody watching this thinks, and they see the title come up on the screen, June, and you just think, summer, are you ready for the summer?
Mm-hmm. Are you summertime, do.
Right. In the summertime, it is freaking freezing, man. What in the world? These ships have gone too far north into the Arctic Circle, and they are not getting anytime soon out. There are no leads, baby.
Because this is in the past and these people are suffering deprivations, I feel like on this show, there's always at least one per episode, a double L.
Double L?
Yeah, life lesson.
Okay, what do you mean by
Tonight's life lesson is shooting a man is more fun when you mean to do it.
Oh.
So that's always just a life lesson. Every week, we'll cover a life lesson that we learned from the show.
Right. And so we know that there's some people out in what they call the blinds hunting this infamous bear, which they believe followed them back to the ship. And we also know that there's still all sorts of noises. And yet, no, that's not the bear. That's not Tuunbaq noise. It's the ice, Georgie. It's only the ice. You know, at a certain point, I'm going to start shooting at the ice. You know, it makes a noise like that. I'm firing my gun. Back on one of the boats, we see they are getting this poor, I'm going to use the term again, I apologize, the Eskimo who was accidentally shot last week. They're trying to get him ready for his burial. And it's a real odd thing they're doing. So, like, okay, some of his possessions we're going to make sure get to his daughter, who as we refer to as Lady Silence, and some things, oh, wait a minute, they were sewed into his coat there, meaning this little a bone carving of what looked like
little totems.
Yeah, little totems. One looked like I would say a long-necked bear, and one looked like a man with his mouth open.
A man, yeah. He was, so that man is saying, "Oh shit! Here comes Tuunbaq."
No! Run away! And yet they decide, okay, let's not give this to the daughter. Instead, let's sew this up. And these guys, these quote-unquote Christian guys, they don't care about these customs at all.
Whatever they did it wrong.
Yes.
Now,
say that again.
I am going to say this, however. I'm not sure what they could do at this point to protect themselves from a boy Tuunbaq. So, whatever they do, it's going to be wrong.
But they even refer to him. He's got some charms. And it's like, yeah, maybe those charms are important. Maybe I want to wear those charms. But Mr. Good Sir...
Right, MC1.
Mr. Good Sir.
Mutton Chop 1.
Right. He's still a good guy, but he just doesn't understand what he's doing, really. He's the one who's like, okay.
Well, he does say put them back, because actually I thought they were going to take them just to keep them, not to give them to her.
Yeah, that would have been terrible.
He was being more respectful.
But they bring the items they did take off the father. They bring them to Lady Silence. And you know what? Dude, let this poor woman go. But how about, why did they have to throw her father's body in the Double H horrendous, horrible hole? Why not just give her the body? She would know what custom to do with it.
Partially it's sort of respectful, I feel like, and partially disrespectful in that they think a body should be buried.
Right.
On the other hand, they didn't dig a nice hole for him. They put him
right. They're not on land. He's not really being buried in land. Like they drilled through the ice and he's dropping down to the water.
Right. And isn't that a
burial at sea?
Glory hole? Isn't that like their? Why did they build that hole? Is that for? It can't be for the ice, because for the water. They've spoiled the water. Is that for them to dump down their privy stuff?
Oh boy,
it doesn't feel respectful anyway.
Yeah, no, it does not in any way feel respectful. Mr. Good Sir, he can tell this isn't right. I mean, this is just a frigging giant hole in the ice, and this doesn't look good. And Mr. Good Sir's like, did Sir John approve this? You know, I mean, this is not the way you want to go.
Yeah, they talk about giving him a more appropriate hole. I mean, just the fact that they're calling it a hole is not very, very nice. You think of it more like a grave. They went out of their way to bury their other boy.
Right. And but then once they drop him in, they kind of push him down so he goes under the ice into the water. Oh.
I mean, what's really nice later on is we get, we get the symbolism of the same thing happening to Sir John, where he is unceremoniously put down the hole. And what was nice, though, was that, they had some questions here. They were like, he doesn't seem like he has any sensation now, does he? Making fun of Mr. Goodsir. Whereas I think Sir John might have still had a little sensation left before he went head first down into the hole.
Right. So we follow Lady Silence as she's left, and she goes out on the ice and she creates a circle, which we can go ahead and assume, I believe, is she's plotting out the space she's going to put her igloo up in. And
she's a fast and good builder.
Right.
That igloo looked bigger than a lot of the apartments I've lived in.
This is L.A., baby. You got it tough. We come back, and Mr. Goodsir, he's still cool, but Sir John, he's having memories of how he got into, theoretically, this mess. Sir John, this is his last episode. Do you want to say how you felt about Sir John Franklin? Because he's remembering his wife giving him this monkey Jacko. He's kind of having his thoughts about everything, and I'm just thinking to myself,
well, I realize it's Sir John who cursed the ship.
Right?
You're not supposed to bring females onto the ship.
Oh, and his wife got him a female monkey, Jacko.
Just at that point, he should have said, "This Jacko is a Jillo. Get me a Jacko."
But our boy.
So I refer to him as Jacko and Jag off.
But our boy, Sir Francis Crozier, who's the captain of the Terror, and once again, R.I.P. John Franklin, who was the captain of the Erebus, he's ready to go to this guy who wouldn't let him be part of his family and say, dude, the gig is up. Let's get some men out there searching for help. Let's get rescued. And Sir John, I believe these flashbacks are trying to show why he couldn't and wasn't willing to admit defeat, for lack of a better word. Don't you think?
Absolutely, because, it's his name sort of on the line. So running away for help is not going to secure his name. He thinks he's the guy who's going to get all the glory for doing this.
Right, but so we have a scene where he sees, once again, Sir James. Fitzjames is also there. And then yet another character, a different Sir John, comes up. This is Sir John Ross. And Sir John Ross, everybody might know him as the Blackfish on HBO's Game of Thrones. He just immediately starts talking trash. Like, what's your plan when you screw this up? What are you going to do? When you're out there in the middle of nowhere, dude, do you think this is real, or is this some sort of vision? Is this his fear of what would happen? I think this is supposed to be real stuff, and I don't think it's stuff he's thinking of. This is filling in more backstory about how he cursed this whole damn trip by bringing on a female monkey, by not listening to any advice from people who told him stuff, because he's got that pride and hubris. He's got that pride that says, Mr. Crozier, I can be your friend. I'm superior to you, but keep your dirty, filthy, drunken Irish hands off my daughter. Yeah, and so...
in the nicest way possible, I mean that, Mr. Crozier.
Well, I think in the first two episodes, Sir John Franklin was relatively nice. In this episode, once Captain Crozier says, hey, give me 8 men to walk 800 miles, and I would walk 800 miles, and I would walk in 3 months.
Right, but he has that attitude, even before, when he thinks that you need to act a certain way, and you need, one thing he's sort of maybe a little bit right about, that the crew's morale might go down a little bit if you're like, we're sending people to help get us out of here. On the other hand, some people in the crew might think, okay, thank God there's a plan for us,
right?
If we're stuck here forever. But his idea is a very patrician thing where we have to make the crew think everything is all right because we're the parents and they're the kids, and that's the way he feels about Crozier. He's not a kid; he's sort of a drunken uncle.
Very drunk uncle. Before we truly get the ice-cold slam-bam attack between Captain Franklin and Captain Crozier, we've got a bit of, do you call it relationship drama, as our boy Hickey. We were fans of Hickey last week, still pretty good fans of Hickey. Hickey last week was stone cold getting busy with Mr. Gibson, and they were caught by this guy, Lieutenant Irving. Lieutenant Irving, kind of seems like a complete fool, but at least he didn't turn him in. But Mr. Gibson, worried about his rank, he goes in and totally does an ice-cold move. He's like, Lieutenant Irving, I didn't want to do it. Mr. Hickey made me do it. Oh, come on. Not cool.
Yeah, he comes up with this excuse, look, I saved the both of us. This is all going to be better. But we'll see. A lot of people are going to be served up some ice-cold slaps in this episode. And the very first one that's going to get served up... Well, I'm not going to say the very first one because right there out on the deck when the two guys... And let me just say something to you listeners out there. Bubba and I are trying our best, but there are so many white dudes in the show that are so bundled up and look nothing like maybe what they would look like on IMDb. Sometimes it's hard to figure out people's names. So the guys who are talking up top, and one of them says, "Well, did someone said they saw that bear?" And the other guy says, "That Mary Jane doesn't know what he saw." Oh. So that was a little bit of a ice cold.
No, it wasn't a Mary Jane. You're thinking about weed. It was he said a Mary Ann.
No, I thought he said a Mary. No, he said a Mary Jane. I'll bet you he said a Mary Jane, but it doesn't mean the weed.
I think he said Mary Ann because this is a boat in Gilligan's Island. Mary Ann was on a boat. All right, here we go, listeners. You're in middle of live bet theater as Catfish and I watch to see which of the ice-cold attacks were said. All right, so we're on. This is the very first scene of the episode, and this one kind of jerk captain is like, hey, I wish I was in the blind shooting that bear. And so,
what's funny is, they say lieutenant, but in the closed captions they always say lieutenant. Come on, it's lieutenant. Let's do this.
What about the right tenant?
Yeah, Robert Ferry says you didn't see it at all, and he says that Mary Ann,
I can win,
aka Jane, doesn't know what he saw.
There we go.
So Mary Ann, the millionaire, the professor, and the millionaire's wife.
All right, this podcast has gotten off track. But we did it because we wanted to get to these ice cold moments. So Captain Crozier, give me 8 men to walk 800 miles, and Sir John Franklin, he, R.I.P., pour one out for him in this episode, but he went down swinging with some ice-cooled swing for the fences. Do you got some of these, how he attacked Captain Crozier?
I do. Well, Sir John says to Crozier, he says, Crozier says, I'm suggesting this because this is the right course of events, and he says, you are suggesting it because you are a man who's happiest with a glass of knock-me-down in one hand and an alarm bell in the other. Ooh! Ice cold.
Ice cold. Hold on. Let me say, Sir John, have you not been following Tuunbaq? I'm going to have one alarm bell in my hand, too. Run, baby.
It's the alarm bell. If I hear the whisper of anything, I'm ringing that bell and getting the F out of here.
Yeah, so it was Sir John who totally attacked Crozier. You are the worst kind of second. You will never be fit for command. And Sir John kept mentioning what is a pretty open secret. Captain Crozier, you are a lush. You are a drunk. You are a big scallywag, not willing to man up and see us through this summer of ice.
Right. And then he says to him, we have a kind of a misunderstanding of who we were. I thought we were friends, and you thought we were relations.
Oh, snap. Ice cold. Now, having said all this, Sir John, he did let Francis Crozier talk a lot of smack last week. Crozier was doing some ice colds last week, And the captain was like, let him speak his mind. Is that a mistake? Is that a mistake in command to let your lieutenants just have free will to speak their mind in open meetings?
Well, I don't think so, but up to a certain point. I mean, if I think Sir John was, if you think that Sir John is right, or you don't have a dog in this fight, I would think Sir John is appropriate. It's appropriate to say, look, my orders are my orders. And, and there's a chain of command. But he sort of brings a lot of other stuff into it. You're a drunk. You're not my friend. You're always... He says it's kind of like you're crying wolf.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of... Crozier could have said, I told you so, you dumbass.
Now, one person who's right outside this cabin where these two men are having their fights is my boy JFJ, James Fitzjames.
Yeah, and he is on Bubba's Band of Fools.
Hey, wait a minute.
He is not on Catfish's crew.
Let me say, at the end of the episode, it proved JFJ... He really cared about Sir John. I kept talking in last week's podcast about how these people I don't want to disappoint Sir John. I don't want to disappoint Sir John. JFJ, the loss of Sir John, he seems a bit lost. He seems a bit shaken to his core, dare I say it.
Yeah, he says, one thing I think he says, maybe kind of right, is can we at least have a day to mourn this great captain before anybody goes anywhere.
Okay.
And that sort of makes sense. I don't know what a day is going to do. You were like, no, they should go right away.
I'm like, run for the hills, buddy. Let me see. Okay. How many limbs does Sir John still have? One limb left. Okay. One day we get to wait. So terrible. But I loved, last week I was always like, I need more action. I need more action. I need more action, because this is pretty good, tense master and commander type stuff. I was okay with it. I rolled with it. I was definitely, more happy to go with the way this episode was going, and I just loved this snappy back and forth. And if Sir John is going to leave the show, he left on a high or a low, considering how he ended up.
How short he was.
So good. And dare I say it, he is the kind of captain who is trying to get the crew to be on one side. He's willing to sit in the blind, out freezing in the blind, and see them kill the bear. He's trying.
Now, the thing that happens next is something, again, since Crozier is on Catfish's crew, I'm all in for him, but he decides...
Oh, yeah. I don't know about this.
Not only is he going to send people out... on that mission to find help, he's going to go with them, and that is, on one hand, it seems a little cowardly, and people on Catfish's crew were proud of being cowards.
Hey, wait a minute.
Catfish's crew, because that means he doesn't have to deal with the reporctions of
pissing off of true leaders, Sir John Franklin.
Mutiny.
Oh, yeah.
Mutiny.
Oh, without question.
On one hand, it's good because he's leading the mission. He's putting himself in danger. But on the other hand, he's like, I'm getting the F out of Dodge. Right. So it's not great work on his part.
Oh, yeah. I hope you write up my review when I do Mutiny. Not great work there, Bubba.
Not great work.
Write up my yearly review, please.
Bubba, I'm going to give you a B- for totally mutinying me against me. And the question is, can they bring enough booze on that trip
right.
for Crozier?
For the 3 month 800-mile journey.
3 month, 800 miles. So this is 10 miles a day. Now these guys have no...
And they're dragging that giant boat too,
They have no dogs to mush. Presumably they're going to drag the boat. Are they going to drag the boat?
They were dragging the boat at the end. Man, that's crazy.
Oh, boy. That seems tough. But that's one way to keep yourself warm, since it's freaking cold out there.
It's June, baby. It's a great way to get some cardio in. Dragging that boat.
But now, of course, at the end, Crozier can't leave with them anymore.
Right. But let me also say that because, I see the writing on the wall, I'm like, get off this boat too. But it's Crozier's number 2, who I mentioned he was played by Ian Hart last week. His character's name is Mr. Blankley. Mr. Blankley, who said, saying, well, what about this? What about this? And then he says, well, what about the terror? A captain in this day and age that we're talking about, the 1800s, abandoning their ship like that? Whoa.
Well, I mean, he is right only in that there's already someone who's in charge, and since Sir John isn't giving him any leeway to make any decisions, might as well have Sir John be in charge of all these guys.
Yeah, and he also points out that JFJ gives them an extra captain on the Erebus, so yeah. So tough. But as we're following, this developing storyline, we meet two new characters. Now, who were these two characters again? They were talking about this canning process that our good Double L Peter in Australia was talking about. There's Mr. Diggle, and there's Mr. Who is this cook? What's his name again?
Mr. Cook.
No, it's not Mr. Cook, you knucklehead.
I don't know. Does anyone know the name of Mr. Cook?
Mr. Wall. They said it twice.
They just ran out of stuff. Mr. Pickle. Mr. Door. So, Mr. Diggle says something great because Mr. Wall is going to give Mr. Diggle some advice. Hey, check out what I'm cooking.
Yeah.
And Mr. Diggle.
The point is you got to turn on the stove before you cook the food, right. Diggle. That's what Mr. Wall says.
Mr. Diggle says, "Thank you for sharing the extent of your knowledge as a cook, Mr. Wall. But I'd never hazard the wreck of your kitchen unless pressed by dire consequence." Ooh, ice cold.
That's what I got to consider in 1800s ice cold. Like if you said that to me in my kitchen, I'd be like, what now? Some of these other ice colds I get, but Mr. Diggle, right. that's a pretty good ice cold.
I would turn to you, Bubba, and I'd say, "Listen, Mr. Foot."
But they get to the thing we were talking about. And Peter in Australia was talking about, and this was quote-unquote a spoiler from real life and the books, is that this food was scant. We heard Sir John earlier in his flashback talk about, I've got 3 years of provisions.
5 if we really ration it out.
Oh, yeah, but if stuff starts to spoil and gets you some smells that cause your hair to curl gray, that's not too good, buddy. That's not too good at all. But Mr. Wall takes a sip of this spoiled food and says, "Just add salt." Oh, my God. Paul.
Hey, first of all, salt flavors everything. Second of all,
yeah.
Listen, the provisions were listed for a certain number of people, and we're losing people every week.
Oh, man, we could be out here 5 years.
Those provisions will stretch longer and longer as it goes.
Oh, without question. So we've got that going on. And then we see Sir John Franklin, R.I.P., once again, he's going out to rally the troops, you would say. Why is he going out to the guys here in this blind who are trying to kill Tuunbaq the bear?
Well, I think two reasons. One is because he always he's got that paternal thing where he's always the father going to buck up the troops. Two, I think something else we learned in this is that he always likes to have people around as an excuse to drink himself.
Oh, that's not Sir John. I thought maybe he brought this alcohol to these hunters out in the blind just so Francis Crozier would have less. He's like, we got to get rid of this because he's always drunk. All right, guys in the blind, have a sip. And back at the ship, we see some of this, what I like to call domestic drama, where this guy, once again, it's a Lieutenant Irving.
Lieutenant.
Who caught Gibson and Hickey last week in their adult compromising situations. And this Lieutenant Irving, I would say by today's standards, he's a complete jerk. He's like, hey, you know what? You have urges because we're trapped out here in the middle of nowhere. Your urges you can fill with watercolors and climbing.
Yeah,
climbing gets rid of
painting. It's the 1800s version of gay conversion therapy,
right? Or Vice Admiral Pence here on the ship is going to say, "Let's try it." But I would
write a book about a rabbit.
Right, because, what would they say back then? What's the equivalent of think of baseball? Think of cricket. Climb the mast. That'll get those urges out of you, Hickey. But, oh boy, Hickey's in this, what I call domestic drama. And is anybody shocked that this stuff would happen? These guys have been trapped in the ice for, now it's going on 9 months. There's nothing to do. There's no naughty Playboy magazines, I assume, lying around anywhere.
The thing that I don't know is that at this, kind of point in this kind of scenarios where where this was really frowned upon, or people kind of turned a blind eye to it. So I don't really know the answer to that. Because what happens on the ice stays on the ice. So it's always been my philosophy.
Vegas, baby. Do you still like Hickey? We're going to follow this through. Hickey confronts his boy, Mr. Gibson.
You like Hickey here because, he's a little prideful. He's like, I got to drink with the captain. Then he found out that wasn't so great. But also, since he's the one that we really follow, we're supposed to like him. And also because he gets kind of betrayed here.
He does like Mr. Gibson, yeah.
Although he gets in some good stuff himself.
All right, you ready?
What does Mr. Hickey say?
Hickey's got a couple. You ready? He goes, "To think you were such a good wife to me all these months."
Yeah.
But the one I really love,
have it. I hope
is that Mr. Gibson's, trying to talk about why he's, turning tail and running from this relationship, and of course, Mr. Hickey. Is that why I've seen more of your posture than of your face this winter? Oh, ice cold. Love it, love it, love it. But then you pointed out Mr. Gibson is, he's like saying, hey, I got to think about my career. Later, loser. He also says, oh, yeah, you're so proud that you got a drink with Captain Crozier. He'll offer anyone a drink if he could have one, too. And that's pretty true of Mr. Crozier. Mr. Gibson was pretty good there. Pretty honest.
Yeah. He's just trying to protect himself. What he doesn't realize is it doesn't matter because no one's getting out alive.
Everybody's going to be drinking if this is what's happened. And it is June. History told us from this time it was, quote unquote, a very extra cold year in the Arctic. And so, boy, oh boy. Can you imagine? You've got 3 years of provisions. Admittedly, those are going bad. You've got, forget Tuunbaq, who is, of course, my boy. But you are trapped in the ice. What do you even do? What rounds? If I'm like a sailor and my job was to raise the mast and lower the mast, raise the sail, lower the sail, or my job is to raise anchor or chart the course. What's the point?
You can't even swab the deck.
Shovel the deck.
It's too cold.
All right, let's get back to the blind, where Mr. Goodsir, if trouble's around, Mr. Goodsir tends to be there. He might be the unlucky thing. Maybe it's he's bringing Tuunbaq back. I'm bringing Tuunbaq back. But he's taking a photo, so he's not just a surgeon.
Right. He's a professional photographer. He really shouldn't run himself down. He's a man of many tasks.
And did you think that Tuunbaq would attack in this, 60 seconds? He had to have the frame exposed.
This is so stupid.
I know, yeah. I mean, so crazy. Why is everything made out of metal? This stopwatch, you put your finger on that, you're going to freeze.
I'm surprised the stopwatch works at this temperature, to be honest with you.
Well, it's June. It might now be, 1 degree, 2 degrees, based on what they were saying last week.
It's tropical. And
these guys, they've got to stay completely still for a minute while this old-time camera is exposed. And I just thought Tuunbaq's going to... what do you call it when you crash somebody's photo? Like when you jump in somebody's selfie. I thought that's what good old Tuunbaq was going to do. But no, instead... It comes a bit later. They let out these rats. They found rats on the ship. They're like the cat on the boat. Sir John was doing some ice colds about this cat. He's like, no, he's not going to catch anything. But
so
rats...
they use it sort of as a here, Toonie, here,
right,
Toonie. And Toonie's like, you know what? I feel a little bit more peckish than that.
I need something a bit more filling, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys, would Sir John have survived if they didn't say, hey, Sir John, hang with us until we shoot this thing. Watch us kill this beast. Do you think Sir John could have gotten enough leeway to escape and get away? Or this beast was like, I want Sir John? Like, does the beast know chain of command?
Well, I mean, he doesn't seem like he doesn't go right for Sir John. He goes for a little snack first.
Right. He grabs somebody from the back of the tent and pulls them up.
Mr. Toe.
Oh, man, there is no way. And so all these soldiers, and he treats Mr. Toe tough. He cuts off the guy's friggin' head. Holy smokes.
Yeah, so basically, he was... this is one thing I was told as a child, and Tuunbaq never was because he was so imposing. Yeah. Don't play with your food.
Yeah, he didn't really eat too much of him looking from that drop. He might not like this taste of Englishman. He might want a different flavor, old Tuunbaq. All this firing is going on. Crozier sees it. He's like, send out the troops. JFJ, James Fitzjames, on the Eberus. He's like, let's go. Let's marshal up. And JFJ, talk trash what you want about him. He grabs a gun and he leads the charge.
Now, so smart, funny thing they show here with Crozier, this is why I didn't think the watch would work. He puts the eyeglass up to his eye and it gets stuck on it because it's metal and it's ice cold.
The Christmas story all over again. And so, once again, I couldn't remember the book. I read this book almost 11 years ago. And so, I have to be honest, I knew that Captain Sir John Franklin was not going to survive. But the fact that he got it here, whoa. And our buddy Double M had a question, and I will pose it to you, Catfish.
A question by Double M, Matt Murdock, at Musical Concepts.
Yeah, and so he was asking, did you like this crazy cross-cutting? Is this Sir John having his life flash before his eyes? For example, when he was turning, was just this his life passing in front of his eyes or something else? What do you think these visions, and I did love the freakiness of this, what the hell's going on with Sir John. What did you think?
Yeah, well, it's funny. One of the things he sees is Crozier molesting his daughter's hand with his own hand.
Yeah, that was fresh.
It's a fresh wound.
And so Tuunbaq, unlike the guy he just ripped the head off, he dragged Sir John and threw him. Did he throw him? Because I didn't see him pulling him into the hole. He threw him into the hole.
It's like he tossed him, and I don't think it's a coincidence he tossed him into the hole that Lady Silence's father was tossed into.
No, I don't think so either.
Tuunbaq is pissed.
Right, but by this point, we see that he's already lost a leg. Oh, my God.
It looks like he might have lost both of them.
Ooh.
Oh, no, it looks like he's still got one shoe left.
Oh, man. And so he falls in. He has a vision of his own feet, but then, he collapses into the ice. This is a brutal way to go. And once again, I think we're naturally, because of his brown nosing and the way Crozier didn't like him, we're naturally disinclined to JFJ. But JFJ, once again, he led the charge. He was somehow trying to think he could save it by throwing a rope down into the hole. Are you kidding me? This is crazy.
Well, I mean, you'd think that, the wound could be easily cauterized with some ice.
Oh, my Lord. You got to be kidding me.
Now, what I love is, when you respect someone, when you want to honor them, just any piece of them will do.
Well, you bury the parts you have, right?
Right. So
Now, wait a minute. The one thing is, Sir John Franklin, we need to talk about how he was as a captain, Sir John Franklin. But I have to say, he did try to give his crew a leg up above the ice. And wait for groans and laughs. Wait, hold for it. That's me being ice cold.
I'm ringing the bell for you.
Yeah, that's your alarm in one hand. What was in your other hand? What was your drink in your other hand again? The knock me down.
Knock me up, knock me down.
Okay, so Crozier gets what he wanted. Admittedly, it's a day late after this service where he took Sir John's words and just crossed out Graham Gore and put Sir John Franklin's name in the...
I love it.
In the thing. I also loved this scene before the funeral where the boys sang this song, like I'm saying, which should have been the name of the episode, Farewell, All Joys. Great moment. What the hell is going on? These guys... This show is called The Terror. Some people have said it's Master and Commander. Let me go to, instead of just generic, some people. I was listening to the Watch podcast from The Ringer. We're hosted by those guys, Andy and Chris. Chris was saying he should watch he was trying to get Andy to watch The Terror on AMC, and he said, you'll love it. It's 70% Master and Commander, 30% like a horror film. has this moment of what happened to Sir John, has that switched it? Can it no longer go back to 70% Master and Commander, Catfish? What do you think?
Disagree.
Okay.
Disagree completely.
All right.
I think it's still, we're still going to have all the brouhaha between Crozier and JFJ. And
it's coming. It's got to be coming. But also these men, several people have said it. We saw the Blackfish actor who played a different Sir John Franklin in the flashback. He's like, your men will betray you. These men, if you're going to be running out of food, you're trapped on this ice, at a certain point, people don't care about rank or titles or, oh, wait, I'm not supposed to do this. This is nuts.
Are you saying people that people are just going to go crazy? That, in other words, people just go mad and start crapping wherever they want? I don't buy that for a second.
Spoiler alert. Once again, JFJ, so far so good. Yes, he's been.
I was surprised. I thought he would go right away from Mr. Crozier. He does say that the captain said "ixnay"
on this trip,
on the rescue nay. But Crozier is just, I was surprised that there wasn't a whole thing about that. But I think, that's coming next episode.
So you've got this evil, possibly supernatural bear. What do you do, Catfish? What is your plan here?
Well,
there was a dramatic pause there. Okay.
Yeah, well, I don't know. What is your plan? It seems to me that the rats don't work, so I think you need to draw lots among the crew and stake one of the crew out there and use him as bait.
Oh, man. It might work. It might work. The episode ends on Lady Silence in her new abode. And
very spacious.
Yes, and we see old Tuunbaq come and leave her a present. Is that Tuunbaq trying to take care of my girl? Like Tuunbaq's like, so. Hey, you're a native here.
There's a symbiosis.
I'll take care of you.
There was a symbiosis between Lady Silence's father and Tuunbaq, and she did say, I'm not ready. Yeah. Which to me seems like there's some sort of connection between the two of them.
She was even carving possibly her own, those charms, those totems that her father had. Did you find this scene tense, this final scene? I was actually very tense. I was like, oh, snap. Oh, snap. What the hell is going to happen?
I wasn't worried because, she's native. I think she's going to be fine.
She's the only woman on the show. She's got to last longer. All right. We don't do this too much since we've had a lot of death on this show so far. Do you want to give any thoughts to the actor Ciaran Hinds and his 3-episode portrayal of Sir John Franklin? I thought he was pretty good. Very, very believable.
Very good, very believable. You understood why he felt the way he did, even though he was just plumb wrong. Oh. You understood his superiority. I mean, they did make him more complex in that, like, he tried to explain to JFJ, like, he's a good man. You need to let
you got to follow the chain of command, JFJ.
Yeah, and
if something happens to me, he's your boss. Uh-oh. He should have done a spoiler alert when he told James Fitzjames that point back in the first episode.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed him on the show, and I was and because they cast somebody who's so well known.
Oh yeah,
and I hadn't read the book in a long time, and I don't even know if it follows the book. I was extremely surprised by his death. And I love the way it shakes things up.
Oh yeah,
for these next episodes. Really like the way it shakes things up.
Next week, we're going to be dealing with Season 1, Episode 4, entitled Punished, as a Boy.
Ooh, I like it.
Described as a cunning attack on the ships proves the men are not battling an ordinary bear and that the region's Inuit culture may hold the key to their survival.
You know why they know it's not an ordinary bear?
Why?
Because it showed up with a picnic basket.
That's a no ordinary bear. Everybody, we are doing this. We've loved all the great feedback we've had so far. Please keep it coming. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear who you have on your cruise. I always talk about the Double B Bubba boat.
And I talk about Catfish's crew, Double C.
The easiest way to do this is go to our Facebook page, like the page, and leave us comments there. It's facebook.com/Double P Podcast. The word double, the single letter P, the word podcast, plural. You can also admittedly hit us up on Twitter. My name's Bubba. You can find me at Fit and Trim. That's FITTENTRIM at Fit and Trim on Twitter.
And I'm Catfish. You can hit me up at CJGman67 on Twitter. Your 67th favorite CJG man.
And you know that, listener, you are the perfect second. When you listen to Ice Cold. 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 Cold.